and CEO of LaSalle Network, Tom Gimbel.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
So good to have you here.
All right, hey, we know resumes are so important, right? Yep. You're trying to land the big job. You only got one chance to make a first impression. Let's talk about some of the biggest do's and don'ts. The first one, what about using a picture on your resume? You say that's a don't.
Don't do it. You're not a retail real estate agent. You're not selling a home, okay? You're selling your skills and your experience. Leave the picture off. Just have professional, crisp, to the point.
Okay, and you say do include a link to your LinkedIn.
That's where everything's at these days. So instead of being able to, if the resume is electronic, people will forward it, but you still have to open up the attachment. You send the link to your LinkedIn profile. People can automatically go and do it. They see it, and it make sure that they match. Make sure your LinkedIn profile and your resume have the exact same information.
Yeah, you don't want it to be like one of those dating apps.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not touching that.
Look, nothing like your picture.
Right.
All right, resume tip number 2, you say don't include an objective statement. What do you mean by that?
So often people will say, my goal is to become an anchor of a TV show, except it gets forwarded over and all of a sudden you're not going to be interviewed to be a sportscaster, right? Have a summary of what you're capable of. I've done X, Y, Z. This is what my talents are. Let somebody else figure out where they're going to put you.
All right, and that's basically the do. Include a summary statement, right?
Absolutely. Have a summary of what you've done and what you're capable of doing.
Okay, and you say resume tip number 3, don't leave out graduation dates. So leave that out.
Well, you got to be careful on what it does. So we're going back in time a little bit, but with age discrimination, that was, if you go back 10 or 15 years ago, people were really worried about it. Now, unemployment's under 4%. People want to get people any shape, size, form, whatever people are. So if you're a little bit older, don't be embarrassed of it. Put it out there. You've got the experience. It's a good thing to show.
So you'd say it is good to list the specific dates for previous jobs and your education.
Absolutely.
All right. The month and the year. Why is that so important?
Well, the month can be important. The year, don't be afraid of what you are. Be proud of what you've accomplished and what you've done, and put it down there on paper.
All right.
Yep. Okay. Resume tip number 4 kind of makes sense. Don't use an unprofessional or old email address.
You would be surprised how many people have funny names at gmail.com. Don't. First name, last name. If you have to put a number in there to make it unique, do that. But this isn't a place to go make friends, right? This is a place to be professional.
So I should delete Big Stud Cheverini at Gmail. Those are the old college
or Yahoo,
emails.
right? Do people still have Yahoo? So you say basically the do here is to make it uniform and aligned.
Absolutely. You got to realize that people are going to open this up. Make sure also that when you send your resume, that whether you open it up on Explorer or Safari, that it opens up and reads it. Send it to yourself.
Okay.
And open it up under different formats and make sure of how it looks aligned and that it's all the indentations are correctly and that really presents in a positive format.
All right, here we go. Tip number 5, don't write in paragraphs.
You know what? People have gone back and forth in this, but when you start writing in paragraphs, you're having run-on sentences. You have more chances for punctuation errors.
Right.
Do bullet points. It comes out to the reader. You have an order for things, and it pops. And that's what you want a resume to do.
Right. Okay. Make sure you use those bullet points.
There you go. Resume tip number 6, don't abbreviate or use informal communication as you would in text.
So a lot of people, I've seen so many. I've probably seen over 50,000 resumes in my life. But what we're talking about is people who are going to use lowercase i's. They're doing emojis for, I mean, literally, we've seen this.
Are you
emojis
serious?
Of a heart sign instead. I heart doing Excel spreadsheets, right?
No,
like, what are you talking about?
Does it matter what job you're applying for that you can get away with that? Is that why some people are doing this?
Maybe if it's a social media
That's
job.
what I'm wondering.
Unemployment drops down to about 2.5%, you can get away with it, right? You can't get away with it. It is something that people look at and they say there's no delineage of what's professional and what's not. It's poor judgment. Keep things above board.
And you specifically say use action words and verbs.
Yes, you want to talk about what you've accomplished and what you've done. You also have to be very careful of saying, I coordinated or I assisted. If you were the point person, I accomplished and I achieved. You want word choice is really important as you're competing against other people in the marketplace right now.
Yep. All right. So we already did don't use emojis, so we'll skip that one. Tip number 8, don't use vague or unclear dates. What do you mean by that?
A lot of people will say summer of 2014 to fall of 2015, right? Don't do that. Use the months that you actually did it. When you're trying to be vague, it's usually for a reason. You're hiding something. If it wasn't for a long enough period of time, then don't list it. A resume is what your accomplishments were and where you spent time at. If you're only at a place for a month, don't put it on the resume.
Okay, what about if it's 6 months?
It depends on what type of work it was and how how long in your career. If you've been working for 20 years and it was 6 months 10 years ago, don't put it down.
Okay.
If you're 2 years out of college, it probably makes sense to include it.
Perfect.
All right, here we go. Tip number 9, don't list irrelevant experience.
So often people will say what they did over, if you're in your 20s, you might put what you did as that you were a painter during the summers. Right? Well, now it's been 6 years and you've been an accountant. It's not relevant anymore.
Got it.
It was when you graduated college to show you had a work ethic. It's not relevant when you're coming on 30 with 8 years of experience.
Right. And resume tip number 10, don't forget to include city, state for each position.
You want to put where you live, because people are going to rule people out based on if they don't want to fly you in for interviews, where you were in college at, where you're living today. And if you're open for relocation, you should put that too. The hardest part in an unemployment level that we have now at under 4%, which is unheard of, right? Aside from everything else politically, under 4% is great. People want to make sure that you can come to where the location is. Advertise where you live.
Yeah, great stuff, Tom.
Some
Thank you.
great advice. Yes, thank you so much, Tom.